So I got into a bit of a beef last week with the Flexibility Maestro, and that's his chosen title. That's not me adding effect.
No one is a master. No. Yeah, we're not in the movie.
I was gonna let this go. He said it was a misunderstanding, same exercise, odd timing, just a weird coincidence. Fine. But then last night I talked to a client. He just signed up and he mentioned he'd been on 3 other high kick programs already, including the Maestros.
Exercises don't actually address the root cause, but
his splits were lower, but still no high kicks. So as you can imagine, he's frustrated. It just sat with me, that one. I was like, some things are right and wrong. And when wrong ideas go viral, people waste their time. People lose confidence. So today, we are going to correct a lot of wrong.
He's not necessarily wrong. If you're truly that stiff, your time would be much better spent utilizing proper stretching protocols.
100% agree, but I don't think we mean the same thing. And this is one of those things where the details matter. Unlocking high kicks is actually dead simple and fast. This is my primary issue with the platform he's building. The athlete in my initial clip went from this
Relax, I'm relaxed.
to this in just 6 weeks.
That was a motherfucking hack kick, bro.
And the program that he was on was 80% dynamic range expansion. 20% were dedicated to secondary objectives like end range strength and skill drills like the one in question. This is the same approach I take with all clients who come to get high kicks fast. It's not difficult, it's not complex, it's not time consuming. High kicks should not take months and months to unlock. I tell all my students they should expect high kicks in just 6 weeks if they can put in consistent training with discipline, correct form, and the right level of intent. And it's supported by the sports science. I even guarantee head kicks in 6 weeks to all the athletes I work with. Not one person has claimed their money back. Despite what the Maestro will tell you, high kicks have nothing to do with the length or the strength of your muscles. It has to do with lowering the stretch reflex of your nervous system at high velocities. Neurological confidence leads to dynamic range expansion. It's earned through increasing skill, timing, coordination, and speed, all of which are outcomes that depend on volume, lots of volume.
It's developing the strength to lift your leg into position and gain more control over your end ranges.
His model is basically strengthen the muscles responsible for moving the leg and lengthen the muscles that could restrict it. If you're doing the splits, great. If you're an experienced kicker who just want to build more strength and add power, great. But if you are not yet kicking high, if you are restricted and your goal is high kicks, terrible. And saying this,
but your dynamic flexibility cannot exceed your static flexibility,
is also just insane. How many elite kickers out there are able to land fantastic high kicks through all kinds of lines and are still completely incapable of doing something like the mid splits. Having muscles that are long and strong is a great thing. It's fantastic for power. It's fantastic for longevity. It's fantastic for injury prevention. It just doesn't do much for your kicks. 2 heavy mobility sessions per week full of loaded stretches that take days to recover from and therefore really decreases the amount of repetitions per week you can get. It takes away a lot of focus from your combat training, and it's the wrong protocol for a stiff beginner who just wants to kick higher. Yes, their splits get a little bit lower, but their kicks stay more or less the same. They think they're anatomically cursed, but they're not. They're training static flexibility and expecting dynamic flexibility results. Now, if you want to kick higher fast, you need to train on a dynamic flexibility approach. You need to do short 10-minute sessions every single day, ideally twice a day. You can use them as warm-up for your regular training, so it doesn't actually have to add training minutes. High intent, high velocity. Kick relevant ranges. Flexion, yes. Abduction, yes. Adduction and rotation you can ignore. Fatigue from dynamic stretching is really, really low. That's why the volume can be so high. And the high frequency of sessions as well as reps per session means that you give the nervous system a lot of new information. It learns that kicking into your end range is perfectly safe. And that lowers the stretch reflex and you start a positive feedback loop. More range, more data, more confidence, and that loop continues. And Russian scientists found that the more you speed up this loop, the faster you unlock your dynamic ranges. That's how you get your high kicks fast, not by treating your roundhouse kick like a loaded splits project. I honestly don't understand how his clients don't question this splits focus. I followed the Maestro back in 23 and I really enjoyed his videos about loaded stretching. But then he went from here is good mobility work to here is how you unlock high kicks. I questioned that at the time. Sent him a number of messages. Some disappeared. All of them went unanswered. And he seemed to just double down on that claim with these very algorithm-driven videos. I realized he does not have interest in the evidence that I'm sharing. I concluded for myself that he's probably not a good faith actor and I decided to unfollow him. And he has this very tissue-driven approach to dynamic flexibility, which I think is scientifically wrong. So many folks ask me why we differ in how we coach. All I can say is I don't see him pointing to any sources. So most of what he is teaching, I think, comes from just regular mobility training, repackaged for kicks. Why I'm making this very long post. In the future, I'll just point to this post and say, look, here is a very long post of all the things we disagree about and the evidence that I think validates my approach.
This is going to be a long video because them are fighting words, boy.
Right. So this is a little detour, but I have to comment on this, right? Like, mate, you don't fight. Like, why talk like this? Also,
Saying that my kicks are just like a little flick in the face because I use a slight chamber.
why use B-roll of a low kick to try and prove the power of your chambered high kick? It's just silly. Like, if you want to scrap, we can scrap. Honestly, like, we can spar, we can do whatever thing this is. I don't mind. Any weight, any day, sort out the details, I'll be there. He seemed to take offense with the idea of being compared to Naudi and the functional pattern folks, but he didn't actually address the claim, but did accept that the exercise is primarily about skill development.
To just learn the basic coordination of a round kick.
It's not meant to build strength, it's not meant to build flexibility, but to give the athlete access to a range of the high kick that they cannot produce themselves in the sport, so that they can build neurological pathways and an understanding of what the high kick feels like. And right after accepting that it's a skill exercise, he regrets, and he conflates the outcomes by calling it inferior to this active low kick / body kick exercise. Sure, your client will build more end ranges with that exercise, but what he's not doing is building new neurological pathways and mapping that sort of target state of a high kick. And that is the functional patterns error. Throwing strength and flexibility requirements at your skill work. You don't need to do that.
But what makes this exercise way more productive is that you're now training the strength of your hip muscles to actively lift your leg into the position.
See, you don't shit on a heavy deadlift because a mid-ball slam produces rate of force development better. And you don't shit on a mid-ball slam because a jump will produce better elastic power. Different tools, different adaptations. Individual exercises should solve individual problems. And it's fine if they ignore others. And exercise is not inferior because it doesn't broadly target the primary objective of the program. That's the job of the program as a whole. A coach should not try and make every mobility drill into an end-range strength exercise. That's the same as a builder who is trying to solve all his jobs only using his hammer. You pick the right tool for the right job, and if your job is complex, you bring a toolbox and you use that toolbox intelligently. Trying to do everything at once is Naudi-esque.
Rather than just trying to jam your hip into IR.
I mean, this too is a misread, right? There's no meaningful hip internal rotation happening in this drill. It's not a key mechanic of a standard kick either. Hector Wang explains this brilliantly in some of his posts. The hips actually stay open, the standing leg pivots, the pelvis turns, the kicking leg abducts, and the leg gets carried by the body. That big rotation that you see is from the standing leg pivoting out and from the whole pelvis rotating around the base. It's not actually from the femur internally rotating within the hip socket. Internal rotation is significant in like niche variations of the roundhouse kick, like a neck kick or something like that, where you cut the angle in the last second. But this is not like the standard pattern. I don't know why he always talks about it. You would think that when experienced fighters, coaches, even champions are chiming in saying that his kicks look karate or taekwondo, that would cause a small moment of pause, but instead he doubles down.
I also just don't subscribe to the idea that Muay Thai round kicks don't chamber.
I mean, so let's spend some time on this, right? Let's separate three things: the data, the definition, and traditional sources, yeah? First, the data. There's this study that I shared the first time maybe 4 years ago, 2017 kinematic study. They take expert kickers across Taekwondo, Karate, and Muay Thai and compare what the roundhouse of each of them looks like. The useful finding is, one, roundhouse kicks from Thai tradition is way harder than any of the others, and two, that the Thai kick is much less knee dominant and much more center of mass and hip dominant, much more about axial rotation.
Until the last second when you release all the kinetic energy at once. In the case of a round kick, you lead with the knee to generate the initial kinetic energy, you release the shin to unleash the power.
So let's sense check this with the kinematic data. The typical karate and taekwondo snap-like kick is based heavily on rapid knee extension, while Muay Thai uses a technique that places greater emphasis on center of mass movements to develop high impact forces. They also found that Muay Thai athletes had slower knee extension and landed their kicks with a more flexed knee. The authors described pelvic tilt and axial rotation as having pivotal role in impact force production. So the point is not that Muay Thai has no bend or extension. Obviously, the point is the primary driver of the power in a Muay Thai kick is not generated from the knee. It's hip-driven, more pelvis-driven, more center of mass driven. Look, bending the knee does not automatically mean that you're chambering. Bending the knee happens automatically as you swing the leg. You don't need to exaggerate it. You don't need to think about it, it just happens. If you throw the leg from the hip and relax until the point of impact, the resistance from the acceleration will bend the knee in and of itself. That's not where you should put your attention. And yes, that bend shortens the lever, as he says in his video, and it allows for more torque from the hip. All good stuff, but that's not a deliberate chamber. This here is.
Push off the floor with your rear foot, lift your leg into a high chambered position and pause.
And that is what you get if you organize your kick around the knee instead of completely ignore the knee and focus on the hip. His centering of the knee, that I think is an issue for beginners watching these videos and taking notes. They're learning the wrong mechanics. So check this out. Like, I actually think his client's kick looks more solid. Client bends the leg, but if you add speed, control, power, then the hip in this form will be the primary pivot point and it'll carry the kick. Yeah, this is not bad actually. But then you look at his demo. Here the knee leads, it gets pointy, it passes across the center line, it then extends, then the shin releases. Like, at this point, the hip rotational force is dissipated. This is why the back barely dents. Shin slaps the back, even though he hates to hear that.
It really fucking grinds my gear.
That's the summary. It's not an issue to slightly bend the knee. The issue is if you deliberately organize your kick around a pointy knee. That makes no sense. Traditional style texts support that claim too. They do not frame the roundhouse kick as a chamber followed by a flick. Instead, they frame it around a pivot, a hip turning, and the shin following and going through a target. In the book Muay Thai, The Art of Fighting, it is explained like this. Imagine that your leg is a baseball bat. The knee does not exist. You have to use the hip to swing it around. Pretend that your leg is in a cast. Swing the kick around like a baseball bat.
Like a baseball bat is an awful cue.
I mean, obviously the baseball bat metaphor doesn't mean you should straighten the knee and stiffen the leg throughout the kick. It just simply speaks to where you should have your focus. On the hip, swinging the leg, not in the knee. The same source makes it clearer. Do not snap the leg. This is not ambiguous stuff. Step, pivot, turn the hip, let the leg travel with the body and let the shin go through the target. Thai kicks bend, variations can whip, variations can even chamber. But high chamber into flick from the knee is a very unorthodox emphasis to teach. And a couple of free pointers here. Step off the center line when you throw your kick. It gives more space for the hip to open. And stop dropping your hands from your temple in your stance. That's how you get slapped. Look, coaching evolves, emphasis evolves, mechanics even evolve. You don't have to worship tradition. But Muay Thai is a very tradition-informed practice. Tradition means something. Most of the best fighters in the world travel to Thailand because they want to get closer to this tradition. Lineage matters, fighting experience matters, technical accuracy matters. Knowledge gets passed down through generations, and they do so for a reason. And when you try to redefine the core mechanics of one of the primary strikes, you will need a little bit more than compelling B-roll, confidence, and Instagram engagement. That said, I do respect that you took the time to respond. These topics deserve more time than what we can fit into these clipped rebuttals. I know that Dan Vincent reached out to you asking if we should all three have a conversation about how to best build strong, powerful high kicks. I said I'm very happy to join the conversation. Who knows, we might even find stuff that we agree on. But we will likely not agree on how to best develop the high kick and whether or not to chamber a roundhouse. On that, I think you're just wrong. Peace. Fuck, that was long.
A high chambered position and pause there for a few seconds before resetting for the next rep. Make sure you're pivoting your base foot 90 to 180 degrees and fully rotating the pelvis 180 degrees so that